Democratic White House hopefuls held their most contentious night of debate yet as the race intensifies. Issues like health care, immigration, and climate change were discussed, but it was the attacks on newcomer Mike Bloomberg that drew the most attention from the other contenders. So Nikole Killion covered the debate last night in Las Vegas. She's joining us now. You know, there's been a lot made of Bloomberg's performance, how important it was, because this is the first time we're really seeing him tested on a debate stage, and he hasn't debated anyone in a long while. What's the campaign saying about his performance this morning?
Well, Anne-Marie, some of Bloomberg's aides admit that this wasn't his strongest showing, especially considering he hasn't been on a debate stage in about a decade. But overall, the campaign feels good about his performance and said he's just warming up.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
Fight night in Vegas started in the opening round with Michael Bloomberg in the center of the ring.
I don't think you look at Donald Trump and say, we need someone richer in the White House.
Mr. Bloomberg had policies in New York City of stop and frisk, which went after African-American and Latino people in an outrageous way.
The former New York City mayor said he was embarrassed about the outcome of the controversial policing policy.
It got out of control. And when I discovered that we were doing too many stop and frisks, we cut 95% of it out.
It was a 2013 court order that actually led to the eventual end of the practice in New York City.
He figured that was a bad idea after we sent in monitors and said it must stop. Even then, he continued the policy.
Bloomberg, who has largely averted face-to-face scrutiny, was also asked about allegations of sexual harassment at his company.
I have no tolerance for the kind of behavior that the Me Too movement has exposed. In my company, lots and lots of women have big responsibilities. They get paid exactly the same as men.
I hope you heard what his defense was. I've been nice to some women.
And was pressed about whether he would release former employees from non-disclosure agreements.
We have a very few non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
that?
finish.
How many is that?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me point, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet.
You could release them from that immediately, because understand, this is not just a question of the mayor's character. This is also a question about electability. We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do as Democrats.
Bloomberg also dueled with current frontrunner Bernie Sanders.
The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you have your home?
New York City.
Former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg pitched himself as the moderate choice.
We shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out.
All right, Nikole. So we heard a lot about Bloomberg sort of trying to bat away the criticism, but there were some other sort of dust-ups, and particularly I'm thinking about Senator Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. He seemed to really kind of target her last night, and you spoke to her after the debate about their contentious exchanges. Let's listen to some of that.
Senator, I do want to ask you about that moment towards the end of the debate where you said, I wish everyone was as perfect as you, Pete, or I'm not as perfect as you, Pete. When you made that comment, why did you go there?
Because he was being so haughty about this. We had discussed it. He's been doing it all week. And I just think that, as I said, you need a president, given the guy we have in the White House. Maybe you need someone who's a little more humble.
But do you think that was petty?
I think what his attack on me was petty. That's what it all started. I wasn't attacking him. I was just trying to make policy arguments.
So not everyone got a chance to watch the debate. I think at one point, too, she sort of accused Buttigieg of calling her dumb or stupid or something along those lines for not knowing the name of the president of Mexico. So can you just remind everyone of the back and forth between the two candidates?
Well, that's right. I mean, I think we really saw last night everybody trying to survive. I mean, it was kind of survival of the fittest, right? And so in the case of Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, you know, they're coming off of these strong performances in New Hampshire, where Pete Buttigieg came in second place, Amy Klobuchar a strong third. And you know, they are trying to ride that momentum, some of which has been blunted by Michael Bloomberg being on the debate stage and also starting to surge in some of these national polls. So I think the exchange between the two of them last night was really trying to carve out who is best equipped to be that candidate in the moderate lane. And so we really saw them quibble back and forth. And it's not the first time. I mean, we've also seen this in past debates as well, with both of them kind of going back and forth. But what was interesting to me was the fact that Klobuchar seemed to take these personal digs, saying, you know, I wish I was as perfect as you, Pete. And, you know, she also made another dig talking about how he memorizes his lines. And, you know, then there was that exchange that you referenced too, where, you know, Pete Buttigieg called her out for not remembering the name of Mexico's president in an interview, saying, well, you serve on a committee that deals with border security. Like, how could you not know, especially since you talk about this Washington experience you have? So certainly some very heated moments between the two candidates, which, you know, is likely to spill out onto the campaign trail as well.
Right. So much has been made about how important this debate was for Bloomberg, but it's also really important for Senator Warren as well, because she's kind of watched her numbers slip in the polls with each kind of additional contest that she's had to face. So she really seemed to take aim at Bloomberg for sure. We saw in your package she had sort of a few zingers, if you will, and it almost appeared to as if she caught him off guard a number of times. What is her campaign saying about her debate performance?
Yeah, and keep in mind, I mean, it wasn't just Bloomberg. She really went after everyone. You know, another key moment was when she went after some of the candidates on their health care policies and getting back to candidates like Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. You know, she said Amy Klobuchar's plan, you know, was about the size of a Post-it note, and that Pete Buttigieg's was like a PowerPoint presentation, you know, really short on details. That was a point she was trying to make. But look, I think her campaign is feeling really good about her performance tonight. We spoke with one of her surrogates yesterday evening who said that he does feel that she moved the needle last night, and we're certainly seeing that in terms of her fundraising. Her campaign has said that she had the best debate day of her campaign, raising more than $2.5 million.
I'm wondering about Bloomberg's team and how effective they thought he was when it came to attacking the policies of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. You know, we saw him kind of make fun of Bernie Sanders for being the only socialist that has, you know, who's a millionaire and has 3 homes. And certainly he's very strong when it comes to climate change as an issue. But going after the other two candidates' platforms, how did they feel he did?
Well, I think overall they do, as I mentioned, feel pleased about his overall performance. They felt that he got better throughout the night. But look, I think going into this, having talked to some of his aides in advance, I mean, I think they were just trying to survive the night. And they knew that there was going to be this firing squad, this target on his back. And it was really just trying to survive that. And even in some of the statements they put out after the debate, that's kind of what they pointed out. You know, that Mike Bloomberg isn't going to be bullied, and the fact that all these candidates were attacking him shows that he's a winner. So I think they weren't so much as focused on policy last night. It was more about just, you know, getting through these various lines of attack, whether it was on his stop and frisk policy, you know, the allegations of sexism in his company, etc. So, you know, from a policy standpoint, I think going into the next debate, which is a CBS News debate, certainly there is more of an opportunity, I think, to focus on policy. And the campaign made the point that he is just warming up and certainly hopes to build upon his performance.
All right. Well, Super Tuesday's right around the corner. Nikole Killion, thank you so much.